Discover the incredible transformation of a lonely woman who found two lost puppies in a snowstorm. Ellen stepped outside her door, and the snow greeted her like an old friend, wrapping the small Midwestern town in a soft, white blanket. The world felt muffled, her once vibrant dreams now buried deep beneath its weight. She couldn't recall the last time she felt warmth, not just from the weather but from others. Most days, she sat alone in her small house, miles away from the comforting buzz of the old diner, a distant memory of laughter and chatter. The loneliness draped around her like the frigid air, squeezing her heart tighter with each passing day. With determination in her bones, Ellen ventured through the storm to check on her elderly neighbor, Mr. Jenkins. He was a World War II veteran, a beacon of strength in this small town, whose kindness had shone through the darkness of her isolation. But as the wind howled and the snow fell relentlessly, worry gnawed at her. Was he safe in this storm? As she trudged through the knee-deep snow, her heart raced when a faint whimper echoed through the blizzard. Curiosity tugged at her, and she pushed forward. There, shivering and helpless, were two puppies abandoned in the snow, their tiny bodies trembling from the cold. It felt like discovering her own lost spirit laid bare before her. Ellen's heart swelled with a rush of emotions, pulling them close to her chest. She could feel their warmth seep into her, wrapping around her like a blanket, igniting a flicker of hope. Back home, she nestled them on a soft blanket, cradling them while tears streamed down her cheeks. Their playful yips filled the silence, slowly mending the cracks in her heart. Caring for them became a new purpose, an escape from the clutches of isolation that had suffocated her for so long. Every wag of their tails and every nuzzle against her hand began to heal her, replacing the emptiness with laughter and love. Before we continue, I need to let you know about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, hit that bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can drop a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, let me know in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. As the days passed, word of her newfound companion spread around town like wildfire. Whispers of Ellen's little act of kindness stirred something in the hearts of her neighbors, igniting long-forgotten connections. People began stopping by, curious about the brave woman who had opened her heart. But not everyone welcomed her efforts. Old prejudices reared their heads, dismissing her as just the local recluse. Just when Ellen felt a glimmer of acceptance, the currents of life shifted. Mr. Jenkins fell gravely ill. Fear washed over her like an icy wave. Could she step outside the comfort of her home again? The thought of reaching out for help after so long paralyzed her. She knew she had to act, but doubt tangled around her like a noose. Determined to step into the light, Ellen resolved to rally her neighbors in support of Mr. Jenkins. Standing at the edge of her driveway, heart racing, she decided to take the plunge, inviting others to come together for a man who had always been there for her. Would they extend the hand she so desperately needed, or would she remain forever on the outskirts? In that swirling, uncertain moment, she realized everything she had been through had led her to this crossroads. As the snow continued to fall, Ellen stood firm, facing the storm, both inside and out. Would the puppies she found in the snow bring the community together, or would she retreat back into her solitude? The question loomed in the crisp air, waiting to be answered. Ellen stood at the end of her driveway, the weight of the world pressing down on her. The snow swirled around her like the chaos in her mind. Would the neighbors come? Would they care? She could almost hear her own heart thudding against her ribs. The puppies wrestled at her feet, momentarily distracted, their yelps breaking through her whirlwind of thoughts. She took a deep breath, feeling the crisp air fill her lungs. "Come on, Ellen," she whispered to herself, as if encouraging a child. "You can do this." In an attempt to fortify her resolve, she stepped forward, leading the puppies inside with a gentle tug of their leashes. Ellen gathered supplies to create a small gathering in her living room. She used an old tablecloth, a hodgepodge of mismatched plates, and an assortment of chipped mugs to brew coffee. As she whipped up some warm cookies, her grandmother's recipe that always felt like home, her anxiety eased ever so slightly. She could almost hear Grandma's voice encouraging her, reminding her that kindness was a language that everyone understood. Each click of the oven timer resonated with her determination. She set the puppies in a cozy bed near the fireplace, their playful nudges prompting sudden moments of joy. The dogs became the mascot of her little event, their twinkling eyes inviting laughter and warmth. As the sun dipped below the horizon, she stepped outside. The air was heavy, but Ellen felt lighter. With trembling hands, she posted handwritten invitations on the neighborhood bulletin board. Join us for cookies and community. Let's support Mr. Jenkins. Simple words wrapped in hope. Her heart raced as she spotted flickering lights emerging through the snow. Figures shuffled in from the street, voices rising in hesitant laughter. A blend of old friends, acquaintances, and even a few of the neighbors she had barely spoken to before. Their breaths puffed out in clouds in the cold, and warmth began to seep into her chest. The puppies scampered toward the newcomers, tails wagging. A little girl squealed, reaching down to rub their fuzzy heads, drawing smiles from the adults around her. A sense of shared joy filled the room, igniting small talks and laughter amid the gentle popping of the fireplace. "Ooh, cookies," someone exclaimed, lifting a plate. Ellen's nerves melted away as she glanced at the gathering in her home. It was a feeling like no other. But even as laughter echoed, a knot remained in her stomach. What if they came for the cookies but not for Mr. Jenkins? When she eventually eased into the chatter and joined in the conversations, she realized there were reassuring glances, hopeful exchanges. They all had a desire to act, to help one man who had touched so many lives. Time slipped away amid the warmth of the moment. Just as Ellen began to believe that community had woven itself back around her life, the door opened with a gust. Mr. Jenkins stood there, shivering, bundled in a heavy coat. Ellen's heart leapt. "Did someone say cookies?" he joked, his smile brightening the room even more. Laughter erupted, but Ellen felt her heart race for a different reason. This was it. She could not hold back the tears, bursting forth like the melting of ice. Would this be the moment everything changed? As the town rallied around their old friend, Ellen's spirit soared, but deep inside, she wondered, could she truly belong in this brave new community? What barriers still stood between her and a warm, loving life? With that question hanging in the air, Ellen prepared herself for whatever came next. The laughter and chatter filled the room, a joyful noise that wrapped around Ellen like a warm blanket. She watched Mr. Jenkins interact with the neighbors, his laughter infectious. It was comforting, watching them exchange stories, sharing small pieces of their lives that had once seemed so distant to her. He was like a gentle spark, igniting connections she had longed for. Ellen hovered near the kitchen, pouring herself a cup of coffee, the scent mingling with the warm, sweet aroma of cookies. For a moment, she felt overwhelmed. Was this real? Her home was alive with people. Laughter echoed off the walls, bouncing back like music she had forgotten how to hear. But she was still fumbling in the background, unsure if she belonged in this vibrant tapestry of community. "Ellen!" A voice called. It was Sarah, a neighbor from down the street, her cheeks rosy from the cold and excitement. "You have outdone yourself. These cookies are heavenly." Ellen smiled, her heart swelling. "They're my grandma's recipe," she replied, her voice quivering slightly from the kindness in Sarah's eyes. "Your grandma? I've heard so many stories about her. You really remind me of her, you know." Sarah's words hung in the air like a warm embrace. Ellen felt a pressure in her chest, not painful but unfamiliar. It was hope blooming where loneliness had once been. "Thank you," she managed, and for the first time, she felt a flicker of pride in the home she had created. As the evening rolled on, the gathering began to shift. Ellen saw neighbors pulling chairs closer together, forming a small circle around Mr. Jenkins. They exchanged stories of the past, memories from simpler times, shared recipes, and laughter that echoed through the night. Stories wove together, each thread a reminder of the bonds that tied them, but then, as Mr. Jenkins spoke about his struggles, a heavy silence fell over the group. He spoke of the bad news he had received recently, his eyes glistening with unshed tears. "I didn't want to burden anyone," he said, his voice barely a whisper. "I didn't want pity, just a little bit of friendship." Ellen's heart fluttered. He had given so much to the community, often remaining a quiet observer in the background. It was a raw moment, stripped of pretense. She caught glimpses of the neighbors, some shifted uncomfortably, others leaned in closer with understanding. "I think we could all use a bit more friendship," Ellen said suddenly, surprising even herself. "Mr. Jenkins, you've always been there for us. Now we're here for you. As a community." A chorus of agreement rippled through the room. Ellen felt warmth surge inside her, a new energy sparking between them. Words of support bubbled up from those around her. They talked about organizing help, whether it was meals or company, and the room that had once felt so foreign to her was now filled with the promise of connection and care. When Mr. Jenkins smiled at her, the light from the fireplace catching his eyes, it felt like an unspoken agreement passed between them. In that moment, Ellen realized something fundamental had shifted within her. She was no longer an outsider peering into a world of community, she was part of it now, but as the smile spread and laughter returned, Ellen felt an unsettled flutter in her stomach. What if she wasn't ready for the vulnerability that came with belonging? Did she have the strength to truly embrace this? And so, with fresh questions looming, Ellen clutched her coffee mug a little tighter, awash with a mixture of hope and uncertainty. What would it take to tear down the walls she had built around her heart? As she looked around at the faces glowing in the flickering light, something within her began to stir, a deep yearning to find out just how far this transformation could take her. The warmth of the gathering enveloped Ellen like a dream she never wanted to wake from. Each person around her, with their stories, laughter, and shared moments, seemed to solidify her place in this new world. But as the night wore on, her thoughts flickered back to the walls she had always kept firmly erected around her heart. Just then, a commotion in the corner caught her attention. Sam, the little boy from next door, was trying to tug on Mr. Jenkins' sleeve. "Mr. Jenkins, can you tell us the story of the two puppies?" he pleaded, his bright eyes filled with wonder. "Not the Snowstorm story." Someone chimed in, laughter erupting in the small gathering. Ellen felt a pang of curiosity. What was it about the puppies that had everyone so animated? Mr. Jenkins, his earlier somberness melting away, leaned closer to the children. "Ah, yes. The story of the two lost puppies during the terrible snowstorm. It was a wild night, snow flying like confetti." His voice became animated, resonating warmth through the room. Curiosity swelled within Ellen. The way everyone seemed entranced reminded her how much she craved connection, that spark of interest which lit up the hearts of those around her. This was what Mr. Jenkins meant by friendship, the sharing of memories, both painful and joyous, bridging gaps that had once seemed insurmountable. And so she listened intently, watching how Mr. Jenkins transformed before her eyes. He painted the picture of a fierce blizzard and two tiny puppies, shivering and lost but full of hope. "I stumbled upon them in my front yard, their little whimpers muffled by the snow. Can you imagine?" Mr. Jenkins laughed, igniting the laughter of the room again. "They were so muddy, I thought they would never get clean." As he spoke, Ellen found herself leaning in closer. She could feel her heart soften with every word. It hit her then these were the moments that mattered. Not just the stories themselves but the bonds created through their sharing. The pain of the past could weave into the joy of now. "I took them inside, wrapped them in blankets, and fed them warm milk," he continued, a twinkle in his eye. "Sometimes, it takes a storm, a real winter of our lives, to bring unexpected joy." The room fell silent, reflecting on the metaphor of the storm and the lost puppies. Hope glimmered like a beacon in the darkness, and in that moment, Ellen realized something crucial. It wasn't just about fitting in or letting people in, it was about being willing to share her own storms, her own tales, even the hard ones. She could no longer hide in her corner, hoping for connection while refusing to offer her own vulnerabilities. With a sudden rush of courage, she spoke up. I had my own storm too. A time when I felt lost. Ellen looked around, feeling unity among the faces in the room. It's not easy to share, but if Mr. Jenkins can tell his story, perhaps we can all start to share ours. An unexpected hush filled the air, filled with possibilities. She felt the weight of their gazes, a mix of support and curiosity. The warmth she felt before shifted into a hopeful buzz, an invitation to open up, but as she contemplated taking that leap, doubt crept in again. What if her story didn't resonate? What if it pushed people away? Would they still embrace her if they knew the truth of her life? Determined, she inhaled deeply. The moment felt like a turning point. What would it take to shed her fears and embrace the unknown sides of herself? Ellen could feel a transformation beginning deep within her, intertwined with the laughter and stories around her. With the storm of sharing looming ahead, she knew she had a choice to make. Would she dare to unfold her own story? As she wrestled with her thoughts, the gathering moved closer together, the energy palpable and inviting. Would they join her as she took that step into vulnerability? Would they be ready to weave the fabric of their lives together? Ellen glanced at Mr. Jenkins, who was looking back at her, an expectant smile dancing in his eyes. In that moment of connection, she understood one thing. Sometimes it takes a storm to reveal the light. Ellen felt a ripple of anxiety as silence enveloped the room. Everyone's eyes seemed to draw her in, like a soft tide urging her to share. She swallowed hard, trying to ground herself. My storm, she started, her voice shaking slightly, was about feeling utterly alone, even when surrounded by people. Some heads nodded along, their expressions a mixture of understanding and anticipation. Sam's little face was fixed on her, innocence and curiosity shining through. Mr. Jenkins leaned in even further, encouraging her with a small smile. It's hard to explain, she continued, but coming here felt like stepping into a place where I could finally belong. But the truth is, before I came here, life often felt gray and heavy. She paused. The room was still, the weight of her words hanging in the air. Would they get it? Would they still care? My mom struggled with her own demons, and I became, well, a caretaker at a young age. I learned how to keep the peace. I learned to put up walls. The rawness of her confession cracked a bit in her voice, and she felt a tear slip down her cheek. For a long time, I kept everything inside. The laughter, smiles, they were just a mask. She glanced around, the faces watching her were sympathetic, open. Suddenly, she noticed that even Sam was holding back tears. It was like living in a snowstorm. Everything was white noise, and I just wanted to find the warmth like those puppies, lost and searching. Ellen smiled through her tears, the metaphor warming her heart. It felt liberating to share, even if the doubts still loomed. What I realize now is that even in the darkest moments, we can find light in unexpected ways. Sharing these parts of me might just be the beginning of my own warmth. A collective sigh escaped the room, an acknowledgement of shared pain. Mr. Jenkins broke the tension. Ellen, sharing experiences like this is courageous and beautiful. Thank you for trusting us. The other neighbors nodded, and she felt their acceptance wrap around her like a soft blanket. Then Sam piped up, "Can I tell my story too?" Laughter bubbled up, warming the moment further. Ellen grinned, realizing that this was how it worked. One story inevitably led to another, breaking down walls piece by piece. As laughter filled the room, Ellen felt lighter. The burdens she carried for so long seemed to lift, floating away like snowflakes melting in the sun. She took a deep breath, blood buzzing with newfound energy. I think we all have storms we've weathered. Maybe we can share them together. And just like that, one by one, others began to speak, recounting their ups and downs, their heartbreaks and joys. A tapestry of life began to unfold, weaving them together in ways they never expected. Ellen listened, encouraged, and connected. The night transformed into an orchestra of stories and laughter, every voice adding richness to their newfound friendship. But then, as the tales flowed and the warmth enveloped them, an unexpected sound echoed from the hallway, a loud knock followed by hurried footsteps. The door swung open, and in walked a newcomer, soaked to the bone, shivering heavily. Ellen's heart raced. Who could it be, and what storm had they battled through? The figure stood in the doorway, framed by the dim light from the hallway. Ellen's breath caught. The newcomer shook water droplets from his hair, revealing a young man, perhaps in his early 20s. His cheeks were flushed, either from the cold or embarrassment. He looked around the circle of curious faces and then fixed his eyes on Ellen. "Sorry to intrude," he stammered, his voice shaky but determined. "I just ran here after I'm not sure how to explain." Ellen felt a surge of empathy. She could see the uncertainty in his eyes. "It's okay," she said softly. "You're safe here. Come in." He hesitated but stepped inside, the warmth of the room colliding with the chill in his bones. The space filled with a palpable curiosity as everyone turned their attention to him. "I was jogging," he continued, rubbing his arms as if to summon warmth. And then he paused, taking a deep breath. "I found a couple of lost puppies." Gasps circled the room. Ellen's heart leaped at the mention of puppies. Memories of her own past lonely dogs searching for home flooded through her mind. "Where are they now?" she asked, concerned. "I left them by my jacket to keep them warm. They were shivering, but I would have felt awful taking them away without making sure they were safe first." He scratched the back of his neck, a nervous gesture. "I didn't expect to end up here, I just wanted to get help." Suddenly, the energy shifted. Shared concern spread through the group. Ellen exchanged glances with Mr. Jenkins, who stood with his arms crossed, already nodding in understanding. "We can help you get those puppies," Mr. Jenkins said. "Anyone with a car?" A flurry of hands shot up. Ellen felt a rush of connection as she watched the neighbors rally together, their earlier stories forgotten as excitement built. The newcomer looked both relieved and surprised. For a moment, he seemed to notice how they all rallied around him, strangers, now a small community willing to help each other. Feeling a rush of hope, Ellen smiled at the young man. "What are you waiting for? Let us go save those puppies." As they moved toward the door, she glanced back at Sam, whose bright eyes were wide with anticipation. In that moment, Ellen knew this story would weave into their lives, as threads in a broader tapestry they were all creating together. The group spilled into the night, laughter mingling with determination as they hurried toward the young man's last known location of the puppies. The cold air stung their cheeks, but excitement warmed their spirits. "Do you have names for them?" Sam asked the young man as they walked, his small frame bouncing with enthusiasm. The young man smiled faintly. "I couldn't think of any yet. I only knew they looked frightened." "That makes sense," Ellen chimed in. "Let us give them the best names once we find them." "What if they don't have a forever home?" he inquired, hesitance creeping back into his voice. Ellen felt a pang. She understood that fear all too well. "We'll figure it out together. Sometimes it takes a village to care for them, just like it does for us." Her heart swelled as they approached the corner where he had left the puppies. For a moment, amid the flurry of the night, she could feel the warmth of their gathering swell like a beacon of hope, echoing the stories of storms they had shared. But as they rounded the corner, the laughter froze in their throats. The spot where the puppies had been was empty, and a flicker of dread twisted Ellen's stomach. Had they run off? Panic began to seep into the group. Ellen turned to the newcomer, and they locked eyes. "We can still find them," she said firmly, taking a small step forward. "We have to." The urgency buzzed in the air as they fanned out, scanning the street. A deeper question hovered just below the surface. What if their own vulnerabilities echoed in the search for the lost? "Stay close," Ellen called out, her voice firm against the uncertainty that loomed. And as shadows danced around them, a glimmer of light flickered in the distance. Were those two small, shivering figures she saw ahead? The search was just beginning. What awaited them next would take them deeper into their own hearts, unearthing the need for connection, hope, and love. Ellen squinted into the dim light, her heart racing. Those little shadows had to be the puppies. She could almost feel their tiny hearts beating beneath the weight of the night. This way. She called out, her voice cutting through the chilly air. As they closed in, the vision solidified. Two small bundles of fur tumbled into view, huddled together on the pavement. Their eyes were wide, their bodies trembling. The group let out collective sighs of relief, a ripple of dawning hope illuminating their faces. The young man rushed forward, kneeling in front of the puppies. "Hey, little guys," he said gently, extending his hands as if to reassure them with his presence. Ellen watched as he scooped the shivering creatures into his arms, warmth radiating from his wide smile. "I was so worried," he exclaimed, cradling them closer to his chest. Ellen could feel a wave of emotions washing over her. The joy of the moment tugged at her heart, but she also sensed a deeper connection. In finding the puppies, they had inadvertently found something in themselves: community, purpose, and shared love for what was vulnerable. "They need names," Sam said, bouncing on his toes. "How about Snow and Flurry?" The energy surged between the group, laughter bubbling back to life. "Those fit perfectly," the young man agreed, glancing at Ellen. His eyes sparkled with gratitude. "Thank you for all this." Ellen felt herself blush. "We just helped each other, right? It's what neighbors do." They turned and started back toward the warmth of their homes, a newfound spirit buzzing among them. As their whispers and laughter filled the air, Ellen caught sight of the young man again. "What's your name, by the way?" she asked, her curiosity dancing around her fellow rescuer. "Liam," he replied shyly. "I just moved in down the street. I didn't expect to, meet anyone like this." "Neither did any of us," she laughed lightly. It amazed her how something as innocent as puppies could draw strangers together, unveiling layers of loneliness they hadn't even realized existed. But just as relief settled, Ellen's contentment was interrupted by a chilling breeze. For the briefest moment, she thought of her own pup, Max, who she lost not long ago. The ache returned, reminding her how deeply a bond with a pet could touch the heart. Reflecting on it amplified the warmth surrounding her now, a mix of joy and bittersweet remembrance. Liam adjusted his hold on the puppies, staring into their tiny faces. "I couldn't stand the thought of leaving them out there. Just like I couldn't stand the thought of being alone anymore." His voice wavered slightly, disclosing a vulnerability she hadn't expected. Ellen's heart swelled, feeling an intimate connection to his words. "Sometimes it takes a little push to find where we belong. Even if it's a couple of lost puppies." As they walked back, it was clear the night wasn't just about rescuing two small lives, it was also about finding each other amid the isolation surrounding them. The air felt different now, charged with possibility and the promise of friendships being forged. But just as Ellen was about to speak again, a strange sound caught her attention. A fierce whimper came from the shadows nearby. The group froze. "Did you hear that?" Sam whispered, his eyes wide. Before anyone could reply, another sound followed, a sharp yelp. It was coming from deeper in the alley. Ellen exchanged a worried glance with Liam, her heart pounding once more. "More puppies?" Liam suggested, his hope competing with worry. "Let us find out," Ellen said, stepping toward the alley. The darkness felt denser now, filled with unspoken fears, hope, and something that felt like destiny tugging at their sleeves. What other surprises awaited them in the shadows? Ellen took a deep breath and stepped cautiously into the alley, the shadows swallowing her for a moment. The chill in the air felt sharper now, as if it was closing in. She could hear her own heartbeat echoing in her ears, thrumming a cadence of apprehension mixed with excitement. "Stay close," Liam murmured, shifting the puppies against his chest as he followed her lead. The little one squirmed at the sudden movement but calmed down, feeling the warmth of Liam's heartbeat. Ellen could see the shapes of trash bins and scattered debris, a typical alley scene transformed into a labyrinth of mystery. The whimpering grew louder, pulling them deeper into the darkness. It was heartbreaking, the sound cutting through the night like a knife. With every step, Ellen felt the weight of the world pressing on her shoulders. What if there were more puppies? What if it was something far worse? A soft yelp rang out again, and Ellen flinched. It was coming from behind an old, rusting dumpster. She glanced back at the group, her eyes wide with uncertainty. Sam clutched Liam's arm, his expression a mixture of fear and determination. Should we check? Sam stammered, looking from Ellen to Liam. We have to, Ellen replied, her voice steadying as courage gripped her heart. If anyone's out there, they might need us. A shared resolve seemed to settle around them, the light from their phones piercing the thick blackness ahead. As they slowly approached the dumpster, the whimpering intensified the sound of something small and frightened. Ellen knelt down, trying to peer around the edge. Hello? She called softly. We're here to help. A pair of glowing eyes blinked back at her, filled with a mix of fear and hope. Oh, sweet thing, she whispered. You're not alone anymore. With a bit of coaxing, a little black puppy emerged from its hiding place, a timid bundle with matted fur and quaking limbs. The moment it made eye contact with her, Ellen felt a rush of protective instinct wash over her. It was a spark, a flicker of something precious that reminded her she wasn't just an onlooker but a part of something meaningful. Look! Sam shouted, excitement bubbling over. There's another one. Just behind the first puppy appeared another, a brown one with a floppy ear, clinging to its sibling as if it found courage in their presence. They were both so small, trembling with fear and hope intertwined. Liam knelt beside Ellen, his face brightening. They need names too. He looked at her with eyes full of warmth. How about Shadow and Whisper? Perfect, she said, her heart swelling at the thought of giving them a new start. Just like Snow and Flurry. The two newly found puppies stumbled over to them, nuzzling against Ellen's fingers. She felt tears prick at the corners of her eyes. These little lives, so full of uncertainty and yet so desperately seeking connection, spoke to her soul. In that moment, she realized that this wasn't just about saving them. It was about reclaiming parts of herself that she had thought were lost forever. The emptiness of her past flooded back momentarily, but it was swept away by the warmth of life around her. Let us get them home, Liam said softly, his confidence spilling into the space between them. They gathered the puppies into their arms, a living bundle of hope nestled against them. As they began to leave, Ellen felt the shadows recede, lifting just a bit. Perhaps this night was more than an act of kindness. It was a reinvention of their lives, a chance for renewed purpose as they stepped into the light together. But as they reached the mouth of the alley, the sound of rustling leaves made them freeze again. Before anyone could react, a deep growl reverberated through the air, sending shivers down Ellen's spine. What was that? Sam stuttered, gripping Liam's shoulder. Ellen could see the fear mirrored in Liam's eyes. Maybe we're not alone after all, Ellen whispered, her heart racing as she searched the darkness once more. What else could be waiting for them in the shadows? The growl echoed again, low and menacing, sending a crackle of adrenaline through Ellen's veins. The shadows seemed to twist and stretch around them, darkness coiling like a serpent ready to strike. She tried to steady her breath, reminding herself that the tiny lives in her arms depended on her courage. Liam's voice pulled her focus back, urgent yet measured. What do we do? Listen, she said, straining to pick up any other sounds that might reveal the source of the growl. Her heart raced, beating a steady reminder to stay alert. It could just be a stray dog protecting its territory. Or worse, what if there's more than one? The puppies in their arms shifted, sensing the tense atmosphere. Whisper let out a gentle whimper, nuzzling into Ellen's side, while Shadow remained silent, eyes wide and fearful. Ellen took a step forward, driven by an instinct deeper than fear. If we're going to face whatever it is, we need to show that we come in peace. She straightened her posture, a fragile sense of resolve washing over her. Liam and Sam mirrored her stance, their faces lit faintly by the cold glow of their phone screens. Sam's fingers twitched nervously, but Ellen could see determination flickering behind his uncertain expression. "Okay," Liam finally said, stepping beside her. "On 3, we call out together." He held their collective gaze. 1, 2, 3. "Hey!" they shouted, their voices rising up against the wall of soundlessness. "We're just here to help." A hushed pause followed, hanging in the air like the calm before a storm. Then, the growl shifted to a low whimper. Ellen squinted into the darkness and saw a figure emerge, a larger dog, scruffy and thin, stepping cautiously into the dim light. "It's okay," she said, her voice softer now. "We're not here to hurt you. We want to help." She took a tentative step forward, leaving enough distance to not startle it. The dog paused, one ear perked up, the other drooping. Its eyes reflected a mix of wariness and desperation. The moment hung thick. It was as if everyone involved understood they were all scared, all longing for connection amidst their fears. "Do you think it's lost?" Sam ventured, glancing at Ellen. "Maybe," Ellen whispered, her heart softening at the sight of the lonely creature. She thought of all the times she felt alone, invisible in a bustling world. "It looks sad." Liam nodded, his voice gentle. "Does it have a collar?" The dark form edged closer, as if in response. Ellen's instincts kicked in, and she slowly crouched down, her hands open, palms facing upward. "There's no reason to be scared. We'll help you. Just trust us." The dog's nose twitched, catching a hint of the warmth radiating from the puppies. It shifted tentatively forward, and Ellen could see the thinness of its frame, ribs protruding under a coat caked with dirt. Suddenly, a rustle interrupted the moment, sharp and jarring. Ellen's head snapped to the side, where two unfamiliar figures stepped from behind the cars parked along the street. Her heart raced again. They seemed to have found their way to the alley too. "What's going on?" a woman's voice demanded, pulling Ellen's eyes upward. The soft glow of a streetlight revealed an anxious expression, a mixture of concern and alarm reflected back at her. "Stay back," Ellen said, but there was no authority in her voice. She felt vulnerable, trapped in a scene that was rapidly spiraling out of her control. "What are you doing with that dog?" the woman echoed, advancing forward as a silhouette form took shape beside her, seemingly ready for a confrontation. Ellen swallowed hard, thoughts racing. "We just want to help. This dog is in trouble, just like these puppies." "Trouble?" the man barked, stepping forward, muscles tensed and ready. Ellen's pulse quickened, but a deep resolve anchored her. They were in this together, and she couldn't let fear dictate their actions. "We're not your enemies," she called out, hands raised more to calm than to assert. "We're just trying to save lives here, all lives." But before she could say more, a sudden snap of twigs drew them all to the edge of the alley, where the shadows deepened again. A pair of eyes seemed to glimmer, but were not alone this time. Ellen's heart raced furiously, fear locking her in place. What now lurked in the dark? And would they learn their fate as the night deepened? The night was far from over, and the next challenge was about to unfold. Ellen's heart hammered wildly as more pairs of eyes materialized from the shadows, each flickering like distant stars against the encroaching night. She could feel everyone around her tense up, uncertainty amplifying the heaviness in the air. It was as if her courage was being tested, and she felt the urge to retreat and disappear. But something deep inside pushed her to stand her ground. "Let us stay calm," she said, her voice steady but softer now. "Everyone, we're here to help." The larger dog continued to take tentative steps toward them, his frame still thin but less unsure. Ellen shifted her focus, sensing that their intentions depended on how they presented themselves, not just words. "Look, we're just trying to save these little puppies," she continued, nodding at the trembling bundles in Liam's arms. "This dog needs help too. We can all do this together." The woman who had approached from the shadows paused, her brow furrowed in thought, glancing back at her companion. "Are you sure they're not dangerous?" she questioned, her voice wavering. The man remained rigid, still pondering. Ellen stepped forward slightly, aware of the weight of her next words. "I know what it's like to feel lost or alone." She swallowed hard, a lump forming in her throat, but pressed on. "We all have our struggles. But every life matters, including those who have nowhere to go. If we work together, we can create something beautiful." The couple exchanged a look, uncertainty flickering in their eyes but slowly beginning to soften. Ellen felt a flicker of hope ignite within her. Perhaps they, too, could understand the power of connection that had brought her neighbors together earlier that night. "Okay," the woman said finally, her voice gaining strength. "What can we do to help?" Ellen smiled, relief washing over her like a wave. "We can create a safe spot for these animals. Somewhere warm. Together, let us get them off the streets." The man nodded hesitantly, moving closer to the larger dog. "I can help with that," he said, his voice a mix of newfound purpose. "But we need to be careful. This dog might just be frightened." Ellen felt a rush of connection spark among them, as if they were all weaving threads back together not just for the animals but for each other. As the group formed a plan, she glanced at Liam, who smiled back at her, his warm confidence encouraging. Supported by their unity, they moved tentatively toward the larger dog, now more curious than fearful. Ellen knelt lower, her voice steady and calm. "Hey there, buddy, you're safe now. We're going to help you." The dog tilted its head, its ears perked up as though listening to every word. Soon, they were able to surround him gently, letting him feel their warmth and reassurances. One step then another. The rhythm of faces lighting up with unexpected hope became contagious, and with every animal they rescued, Ellen felt more of her own burdens lift. Each puppy, now cuddled close, offered her fading memories of loneliness, longing, and fears that had been buried all too long. As they gathered the animals, Ellen felt the pressing embrace of community grow stronger. Between the laughter, the way Sam giggled at the pups, and the way Liam kept grinning at her, there was a newfound energy flowing. By the time they relocated to a warm spot in one of the neighbors' homes, the ice that had separated them all melted away completely. Once settled, Ellen gathered everyone close, looking around at the faces now glowing with connection. "This is incredible," she said, overwhelmed with gratitude. "We did this together." As Sam and Liam shared stories about the puppies, she saw vulnerability transform into joy, a promise of belonging that once seemed impossible. It was more than just rescuing animals, it was reclaiming pieces of themselves, stitching together a quilt of hopes, fears, and laughter. "Remember," Ellen whispered, "every storm can lead to a brighter tomorrow. We've found each other, and now we can grow." As the night wore on, Ellen felt lighter, her heart open to the embrace of the community around her. They had stepped into the storm together, and what awaited them were not just new lives but a forever family, one built on compassion, connection, and love. Ellen looked at Liam, and he caught her eye. "Nice to meet you, neighbor," he said with a grin, sharing a smile that felt like a warm embrace. In that moment, all uncertainty dissolved, washed away like footprints in the snow. The journey forward was theirs to navigate, together. Her heart swelled, and tears pricked at her eyes, not from sadness, but from bliss. She had finally discovered, in the midst of chaos, her true sense of belonging. This was her transformation, her story woven into theirs, lost souls finding their way back home. Now, let us continue this journey together. You need to subscribe immediately to this channel to not miss the next exclusive stories that inspire and unite. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm. Supporting these tales really makes a difference. Comment below with your reactions and feelings about this ending. Your voice matters in this community. And don't wait not even one more second to share this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this transformation. Real connections start with you.